When I think of Dead Rising, I really can't compare it to any other game. I mean, it's truly a game in its own category, from its incredibly goofy boss fights to the clunky game mechanics and the incredibly high-tech NPC AI that was just revolutionary for the time. Just look at them go! Set in a relatively upscaled shopping mall, the sheer amount of content Dead Rising packs into the Willamette Mall setting was actually amazing for the time being. With hilarious character customization and a very memorable main character being Frank West, it was no question Dead Rising is one of the best zombie games ever made. As well as challenging. With Dead Rising's constant timer running during the main storyline, it can be quite difficult to complete all the objectives the game has to offer without time running out on you. When the game first released way back in 2006, it had loads of objects you can interact with, and an abundance of weapons, and I mean an abundance. Like, you could use anything as a weapon. You want to use a wooden bench as a battering ram? Go for it. Want to mow zombies up with a lawnmower and then pick up said lawnmower and bash them down with it some more? Well then me too, let's do it. Or maybe you want to have a silly goose time and just shoot water guns at them. Well, I got news for you, kid. That was possible too. The possibilities were endless. But there was one weapon that was the pinnacle of gaming in my eyes. You see, when you're unarmed in Dead Rising, you can perform a harmless spit mechanic that does no damage to anybody. But if you utilize the game's juice making mechanic, you can create a tincture called Spitfire, turning your harmless spit mechanic into a deadly one, just like you're spitting out bullets. So, today, I wanted to challenge myself. Can I 100% Dead Rising with only my spit? To clarify first, what I mean by 100% is simple. 1. I have to complete all mainline story scoops and overtime using spit as my only weapon. 2. I have to defeat every single boss and optional boss using spit as my only weapon. 3. I have to save every single survivor you can possibly save during the mainline story and escort them safely to the security room using spit as my only weapon. And number 4, the most important rule of all, spit is my only weapon. Now that all that's out of the way, let's begin. And boom, we're ready. We start out by getting an intro to our main man, Frank West, as we approach the game's setting via helicopter. On the way, we're snagging a few pictures of the events below us, ultimately jumping out of the helicopter onto the roof of the Willamette Mall. Right off the jump, we get introduced to the main antagonist before we're reminded that we're on a constant timer, so it's time for us to get our asses moving. So I make my way down into the security room, I change Frank into something a little better, and then I head on out to the main entrance area to meet a bunch of very unimportant people and a Superman old lady that's about to body a bunch of grown dudes to try to save her dog, which ultimately lets in all the zombies and starts off the game. Big Daddy Brad then yells at us to move. We grab a couple bites to eat before we almost die right away. I make my way to the staircase, take a few group photos, and then I make my way back up to the security room. While back at the security room, I get introduced to my new adoptive parents, Brad and Jesse, and my new half-brother, Otis. Big Daddy Brad tells us then he doesn't love us anymore and he leaves us to go find a new family.
Are you a photographer?
Our new mom is immediately talking smack about our career, so we get all up in our feels and get the heck out of there. I then head on out to the roof where I see my first group of survivors, bring them back to the security room, and I get that sweet, sweet PP bonus. I then learn that Brad needs our help after getting himself in a little scuffle, and I let Jesse know that I'm just the man for the job.
I've covered wars, you know.
After that, I take my first steps into the zombie-infested mall before heading out to assist B-Rad in the food court. But before I can go and assist Brad, I need to quickly make the first of many Spitfires for this run. So I go and I grab some supplies at Jill's Sandwiches, I then head on up to Roastmasters for the blender, and voila, I got our first Spitfire juice. Now I make my way to the food court and try and find Brad, and upon entering, we're immediately shot at. Brad then asks us to save him because he's a scared little bitch, so we go out and we suck down our first batch of Spitfire. We charge Carlito head on, give him a lethal dose of spit, and honestly, he went down pretty easily. I then decide to follow Big Daddy Brad to the entrance plaza, while all along the way I shoot down as many zombies as my little heart desired. We make it to the entrance plaza, get yelled at by Dr. Barnaby, and then we move on. I make my way over to the food court, make a couple quick steps and a couple more Spitfires, and then I make my way over to Kent for the first time.
Fantastic. Perfect.
After receiving a few more calls from Otis about some more survivors around the mall, we start making our way around the mall to gather them up and bring them to the security room safely. Which is definitely easier said than done, especially because at this time the convicts spawned in, so going through the park was going to be a little bit more of a hassle. Thankfully though, when we actually got outside to the park, the convicts were kind of just posted in place, so I sent the group into a corner, ran, grabbed Sophie, went back to the group, and then just brought everybody inside to the Paradise Plaza, and we made our way to the rooftop pretty easily. And after this first large escort went pretty smoothly, I was hyped, as you can see. Escort complete. Oh, we just got super big PP on that one. Whole lot of PP. Massive, massive PP on that. Massive PP. Wow. Stock increased. That's what we love to see. Ginormous PP right there. After my first big survivor haul, I decided it was time I take on another optional boss, this one being one of my favorite bosses in all of video games, honestly, and that's Adam the Clown. My goal for this Adam fight was simple, rapid fire. See, I wanted to fire my spit at him as fast as Frank possibly could to try to prevent him from getting any attacks off and to keep him in place. And after some rapid fire and an actual hit from Adam, he went down with relative ease, and I was pretty surprised how simple this fight was. After disposing Adam via spit, it was time to save some more survivors, so I go and I greet these two Japanese guys, as well as a guy that Adam had trapped on the roller coaster. Luckily, our new roller coaster friend tells us of a shortcut, so we try and make our way there, and yet again, it proves easier said than done. After realizing I hadn't saved and dying a little bit on the inside, I quickly restarted from the beginning. I took Carlito out again, I gathered up my first large group of survivors, and then I decided this time to go run, kill the convicts, take their car and grab the maintenance tunnel key before going back and ultimately killing Adam and getting myself right back where I was. So, I gathered up my 3 survivors again, helped them battle through a few hordes of zombies, hit a quick save, and then made it back safely with them for yet again that sweet, sweet PP bonus. Now with some time to kill and after a few more calls from Otis, I make my way over to the North Plaza and I begin my fight with Cletus. After a couple attempts at this fight because Cletus is a son of a bitch, I finally take him down using only spit and then I save one more survivor. Now before I go and rescue the professor and back up Brad against Carlito for the second time, I got another call from Otis about a couple stranded in a store, so I went and checked out these 2 survivors and attempted to bring them back to the security room. Now after that, it was once again time for me to back up Big Daddy Brad because he was pretty useless on his own, so I made my way up back to Roastmasters, made a couple more Spitfires and a couple Quick Step Juices, and then headed out to the entrance plaza to assist Brad with taking out Carlito and saving Dr. Barnaby. And again, this fight was relatively easy and Carlito went down pretty quickly using spit. After saving Dr. Barnaby with Brad, we're tasked with going to get some medicine for Brad, and on the way there we noticed that there's 2 survivors in the Paradise Plaza being berated by zombies. So we do our best to spit all over the horde of zombies attacking them and saving them and bringing them back to the security room. Now after bringing back the sisters safely to the security room, it was time to go make the medicine run and take care of Steven in the grocery store. Now thankfully Steven is attached to his shopping cart, so he's pretty easy to outmaneuver and he was relatively easy to spit all over and take down. So I run back to give Jesse the medicine for Brad, and then I immediately go back out to save more survivors. Now this next group of survivors I was going for was gonna be a little bit tricky as I had to also kill 1 boss and 1 mob of psychos. So I quickly ran to the Alfresca Roastmasters to make another batch of Spitfire juices before heading over to the first survivor in this group. As I brought this first survivor through the park, I quickly realized that the convicts respawn, so I was gonna have to actually take them out again. So I ordered the survivor to go far away in the distance as I tried my best to take the convicts out yet again with my spit. Thankfully I was able to take them out again, so I picked up my survivor and we kept it moving. Now immediately after fighting the convicts again, it was time for the hatchet man, and this time I had to bring the survivor with me, so I ordered him to hide in a corner while I tried my best to take out the man yet again with all my spit. And finally, after just running around in circles, the hatchet man was no more due to my spit. After him, I went to the room next door to gather the survivors he'd captured and began escorting everyone to Paradise Plaza for the last few survivors in this group. Now upon entering Paradise Plaza, I realized that the cultist psychos had taken over, so I had to take out this group of cultists before I was able to save the survivor that they had captured. Now immediately after saving the woman, we head next door to Jill's Sandwiches to get another survivor, making the total number of survivors currently 6. I then gather everybody up and we make our way to the security room. Now unfortunately, due to the AI stupidity, I was only able to save this batch of survivors in groups of 2 because they weren't able to jump up that ledge. But it doesn't really matter because ultimately in the end we get super big PP bonus and that's all we want. Right after that we pop a quick save and then we head right back out to the mall. After a few more calls from Otis, we make our way over to the Wonderland Plaza to save a few more survivors that are hanging off of this giant bunny. We spit all over the surrounding zombies and get them down before making our way up the stairs to get the next batch of survivors as well as take out the next boss. Due to Joe constantly charging you, I had to come up with a little bit of a different strategy for this fight, so all I did was really run in a circle around a table till she went down. It wasn't all that hard. Now after Joe went down, I gathered up the survivors like the general I was and I led them to safety in the security room, taking on any enemy and zombie head on with my spit. I keep it moving and then I head back to the North Plaza, this time to take on Isabella on her motorcycle. Now this fight was a bit annoying just because it seemed that no matter where I ran to, Isabella would either run me over or just shoot me down. Finally, after a few tries, I figured out that all I had to do was sidestep her charge attack, and then I could get a few spit shots in every single time. Now after doing this for a bit and taking many hits, I finally made Isabella fall. After that, I go and I grab a few supplies at the grocery store, and then I make my way over back to Roastmasters to make a few more Spitfires and some quick step juices. I keep it moving and I head back to the entrance plaza, this time to take on the hunting family, that being Father Roger and his 2 stupid sons, Jack and little bitch boy Thomas. And finally, after a bit of cat and mouse, I was finally able to bring down all the members of this family using Frank's mouth juice. Now with the sniper family down, I was able to gather up all the survivors here in the entrance plaza and bring another group of 4 to the security room. And right after that, it was time to go meet Isabella again in the North Plaza and escort her back to the security room safe. And on the way back, we picked up another survivor and we all went to the security room together. I then ran to the food court to get a couple bottles of wine to make a few more quick steps, and I found this very drunk survivor, so I lent him a hand and brought him back to the security room with me. I then hooked my buddy Floyd up with some booze before making my way over to the movie theater to finally get rid of the cultist members. After I take out the initial mob, I head on into Theater 4 to take out the leader, Sean. This fight wasn't too terrible if you just kept moving around. Eventually, after just a bit of bobbing and weaving, I spit the life out of Sean and I finally put an end to the cult's shenanigans. I took out the remaining cultists and then I freed all the survivors and brought them back to the security room safely. But unfortunately, my OBS had crashed at this point and I didn't really realize till I was well into overtime, so you're just gonna have to trust me that I saved all these survivors, including the lady in the closet. I promise.
I've covered wars, you know.
We head back out after yet again more calls from Otis about more survivors around the mall, so I head to the gun store in the North Plaza to gather up a group of 3 survivors. After showing them a picture to the vent into the security room, they join me and we all make it there safely. Isabella then tells us Carlito planted bombs all over the mall and that we would have to gather them up ourselves, so we head back out. Now before we head to the bombs, I quickly go and make more juice before it's finally time to take on Kent. Now Kent's fight is a little similar to Sean's fight, only he has a gun to shoot you with, but after a little bit of bob and weave, Kent also succumbed to Frank's Spitfire. After Kent goes down, we save his captured survivor and then we head to a store just below to save another survivor. After gathering the 2, we head back to the security room, prevent a mutiny from the ungrateful survivors that I've been saving, and then I pop a quick save before I head back out for the final group of survivors. So I make my way over to Wonderland Plaza where I first noticed this little old lady surrounded by a whole lot of zombies, so I hopped right into action. Spitting all over the zombies surrounding her, I gathered her up and then I moved on to the store next door to get another survivor. After getting the sick man, we make our way over to another store on the plaza where it's finally time to take on Paul and gather the remaining survivors. The Paul fight wasn't too bad just as long as you monitored his pipe bombs, but other than that, I just spit on him from a distance and he was down in no time. After we spit Paul down, we put out his fire and then we told him he's been a very naughty boy. We then gathered him up and the other 2 survivors that he had locked away, and we headed straight for the security room. After all that, I took a brief moment just to observe all my hard work. Look at these beautiful people. So after this, I recorded just until I started overtime, but my OBS troubles persisted and I lost that entire last bit of recording. So I downloaded a time skip mod that speedrunners use to speedrun the entire game and get myself up to this last part just to record the ending. Okay, so where were we? So I hustled my little butt down to the maintenance tunnels and then I began collecting the bombs as quickly as my level 8 self could. To be honest with you, this was the most difficult part without a doubt in the entire game, mainly due to the fact because I was such a low level now because I restarted for footage. so I barely had any health, I had no storage for med or any Spitfires or quick steps, but nonetheless I kept pushing. The first bomb was easy, but on the second bomb, Carlito was back. Thankfully I was able to duck into a stairwell for cover and hit him with some shots from afar, which I really couldn't tell if they were doing any damage or not, but thankfully they were. And after I got a couple shots in with Frank's mouth juice, he laid off of me for a little bit. When he returned, I was determined to stop him, so I bobbed and weaved like I've never bobbed and weaved before, and after I finally figured out how to get him into a loop of trying to run me over and crashing into the wall, Carlito was finally finito. After taking down Carlito, I then hustled my little bustle to make sure I got all the remaining bombs out in time. Oh yeah, also Brad died. I then hustled back to the security room to show off my legs before taking Isabella to Carlito's hideout. So we make our way to the hideout in the North Plaza just before Jesse calls us to let us know that Carlito has been captured in the basement of the mall. So we begin to make our way over there. I pop a quick Spitfire juice, and then we're introduced to our next boss, Larry. Now the Larry fight was super easy. All I really had to do was stand behind these tables on the side, and basically that blocked all of his range attacks. I really just had to monitor his health regeneration, but other than that, Larry was a piece of cake. So Carlito then dies, and then we go and tell his sister, and she's all like, okay, sounds good, bro. And then we receive a call from Jesse again, letting us know that we're all screwed and that the government is gonna come kill all of us. Jesse then activates her zombie powers, and Isabella tells us to kick rocks, so we head over to the helipad to wait for our rescue. After the chopper crashes, Frank gets really sleepy, and Isabella has to carry us all the way to our comfy floor in Carlito's hideout. Isabella then tells us that we're infected, but not to worry, because she can actually just create the vaccine then and there with some supplies, so we head back out to gather the items that she needs. Also, I have to mention that I was finally able to resume my main file here, so I hustled around the mall gathering all the items and the queens that Isabella needs, and as well as making sure that I spit all over the special forces that I came across. Unfortunately, I get captured by the special forces, but I break free rather quickly, gather some more supplies before delivering the final queen to Isabella. Isabella then gives us the vaccine and then tells us that she can actually just create a perfume to keep zombies away from us entirely, so she does that in 2 seconds, and then we make our way to the other underground tunnels to escape. With the help of Frank's mouth juice and Isabella's anti-zombie perfume, we make it through these cave tunnels with no problem and make it to the Humvee at the end. After that, we're then attacked by a tank, so Isabella has to shoot it up with the mounted gun. Oh, and by the way, this doesn't count as not using spit because it's Isabella, not Frank. Bold Boy Brock then pops his head out of the tank, and Frank hits him with a 1-2 Falcon punch before the final showdown begins. Now I mean this when I say it, this is hands down the easiest fight in the entire game. Spitting on Brock constantly just leaves him in a blocking state, so it's really just a time game with him. And just like that, after constant spitting, the final boss in Dead Rising was bested by none other than Lord Spitter, Frank West. So, in conclusion with that, all spit objectives have been complete, and that answers the final question. Can I 100% Dead Rising with only spit? Yes. Yes, you can. Hey, if you made it this far into the video, I really just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate you. I hope you have a great day. I love you. See ya. Thank you for being you. Mwah.